There's so many different kinds of EVA foam. This one I get in a large roll off Amazon. So this is about 1/4 of an inch thick, and this is an anti-slip fatigue mat. And this I actually get at Walmart when I'm really desperate. This one's closer to a 1/2 inch. So maybe you've seen these before at a gym or sometimes at like daycares. They're like puzzle piece flooring that they'll all interlock together. These are both EVA foam. They're just sold in stores as fatigue mats, but I often use these instead of buying it at, so you can buy EVA foam online from foam distributors, or you can also buy them at fabric stores because they're really popular with cosplaying. And it's a little bit pricier, like when you're buying it that way for some reason. So this is my trick. And then, you know, obviously usually you want to work with the smooth side. And so when I buy this stuff, I just, work with this side and then this goes on the inside, and nobody knows the wiser that I used this cheaper foam. But here's an example of some that I ordered from a foam seller. And this is probably like 5/8 of an inch. And this is a little bit less dense, so it's a little bit looser, whereas this is stronger. So different, you can do different effects with these different kinds of EVA foam. And also this, it's a cutting mat, and it heals. It's a self-healing cutting mat. But if you don't have one of those, like a piece of cardboard would work fine. I have a hat that I want to make out of foam. I have some aluminum foil, some duct tape, and a Sharpie. I literally just cover it with foil. This would work for anything. You could cover your arm in foil. You might need help, but this is basically like a quick and dirty way to make a pattern where you're fitting the surface. So I'm gonna cover this with foil, and then I'm also gonna go over it with tape. Here it is covered with foil, and this is gonna be before I put tape on it. I actually put the tape on kind of tight because I want the pattern to be really fitted. I'm also, as I'm taping it, I'm also kind of trimming this to be the size of the hat. So I can just kind of feel where the hat is, and then I'm just trimming it just so that I know that I'm not taping past my hat. Here is my taped hat, taped over foil. You're gonna draw shapes, basic shapes that make this up with a Sharpie that will become your pattern. And what I do is find the center, and I kind of eyeball it, honestly. Because since this hat is symmetrical, I really only need to do this to one side, because then I can just double everything. I drew this center line, and I also marked where the brim of the hat goes. Now it becomes about drawing shapes, making simple shapes that can make up my pattern. And you can have fun with this, like they could all be diagonal, it could be stripes. What would be easiest to glue, but also what would make this look interesting, especially if you're gonna paint it, then those lines may actually become kind of part of it. Another thing that's really important is just you cannot label patterns too much. So this says brim 1, brim 2, and you can see I put 2 notches here to connect this to this. And then same here, I did brim, and then I have a notch here. And the important thing to remember is, so we're gonna have to cut 2 of each of these because we want it to be symmetrical on this side. So when I cut 2 of these, I need one of them to be the opposite. So that this one is like a mirrored image over here. So you can see here, I have top 1, top 2, side 1, side 2, and I drew these circles here. So there's a circle, there's a triangle, and there's a square. And this is so that I can line up my pieces later if I get confused. And then this says back 1, back 2. I'm literally gonna take the hat out. This is kind of this weird thing that it looks like on the inside. I think it's a good idea to take a picture right before you cut it, just so that, you know, you're sure. Like I use the picture as like a guide. If I'm ever confused later, I have reference of all my pieces. So now I'm actually going to take a scissors. I love to use tin snips because they're just so strong, but you could probably do a regular scissors. And I'm gonna cut all these pattern pieces out. Here is half of my hat. Here's all my pieces, and so you can see how important those little shapes are to match up now, because I feel like now that these pieces are cut, it's like, what in the heck? So it's easier to see, and you can see how now they're laying flat, which is what's really important about cutting it down into smaller pieces. I'm gonna trace all my pieces, but I'm gonna trace 2 of everything. So this is this front piece, and you can see I did one with it on the tape side and one with it on the foil side, because everything has to be doubled in reverse. From here, you can use like a really sharp utility blade. So this is a utility blade. And I actually use blade sharpeners. So they make blade sharpeners that are smaller and compact, but this is like one that's used for kitchen knives. So you actually very carefully go like this, and that'll sharpen the blade. In my case, I tend to focus on the top part, like right here, because that's where I'm doing a lot of my cutting. You can also use, this is called an X-Acto Blade, and what's nice about these is they often come with like a huge pack of blades. What's nice is I can change it pretty regularly, and again, what you're going for is like really, really sharp. What you want is like a really clean, in fact, this actually, oh no, this blade is really sharp. See how clean this cut is? So that is the goal. If it's a really jagged cut, it's not gonna look as good glued together. You could also use scissors if you think you're gonna get like a real, well for this, see how this is only 1/4 inch EVA foam? So you could definitely try to use scissors if you can get a really clean cut. Let's take a look once I cut this. So this is pretty smooth. I think the blade is a little bit smoother. So whatever you have access to, as long as you take your time and just get that smooth edge. All my pieces cut out. Remember, I have 2 of every piece and they reflect each other. And now it's like a big puzzle and you just glue them all together. A big puzzle with glue. And so we have brim 1 and brim 2. So I lined them up this way. And I put brown paper down so I don't get glue on my self-healing cutting mat. I have my contact cement. I buy one that comes with a brush. If you bought one that doesn't come with a brush, you may want to get like a cheap brush. But so you're just gonna slowly and carefully try to, because you just don't want to get globs of glue everywhere. So you're putting enough glue on that it's covered, but you're not overdoing it. This stuff is stinky, so you may want to open a window when you do this and maybe wear a mask. You know, it's never good to breathe in chemicals. So this one I actually need to put glue on both sides, and you let this dry for a second. Okay, so this is pretty good. It's sticky, but it's not wet anymore. So now we're gonna glue these together, and this glue is no joke. It is, once it's glued, it's glued. So take your time and just really line up edges and keep this glue line as smooth as possible. So I'm gonna go pretty slow here. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, so like I said, we have this brim here. So now I think it's good to like piece the original piece together so you can kind of remember how this goes together. So I laid these out exactly how this goes. So I'm gluing these edges together. So I'm just gonna do it bit by bit until I've put the whole thing together. Okay, so these are my top pieces glued together. These are my side pieces glued together. This is the brim. These are the back pieces. And then I also have these 2 front pieces that are individual. So I know this is probably feeling confusing, like how do I keep track of all these pieces? But again, try to think of it as a puzzle and kind of keep going back to these original pieces. So for example, here's top 1, top 2, side 1, side 2. You can see my circle here, the square lines up, the triangle lines up. So I'm gonna start with those. So here's how those are supposed to go together. Here's my 2 pieces. So I'm gonna put glue on this edge and on this edge. So while I'm waiting for my top and sides to dry, I'm also gonna put glue on this side of the front. In fact, I could probably just go ahead and put glue on all 3 sides because I'm going to be gluing all those sides. So if you remember, we're going to glue the front to the front. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue on both of those front pieces on these 3 sides. So this is my side piece and this is my top piece. And I want to line up that center line. So remember, I'm just going to take my time and go a little bit at a time. And I'm just trying to force that center piece to line up there. So this is a little bit weird because we've got a little bit of a curve here. Okay, that's pretty good. So that's our top to our side. So I'm going to do that with the other top and side piece. So I've got my 2. So this is the side, top, top, side. And I want this top to go together. So we're really gonna start to see this hat shape soon. Okay, so, you know, another thing you can start doing too is kind of squeezing it into the shape you want. So I'm doing top to top here. Okay, so these are my 2 back pieces. So this was, if you remember, I had back 1, back 2. So this is back 1, back 2, and then the reverse of that. Whoops. So I'm going to put this seam together. All right, so I'm going to kind of curve this out. I'm just kind of squeezing it into this shape that I want. So again, just take your time here, and you're just going to, slowly but surely stick these edges together. Here's my 2 front pieces. Really see like where those are gonna go. So okay, so now I'm gonna put this brim on. So I'm actually going to start, because I want to line up this seam, so I'm going to start in the middle and then work my way around. So I'm just going to kind of draw where I want this to go. So now, so I can create like the tightness, I'm actually just going to use Velcro because that can be like a really easy solution. So I'm going to paint enough for little strips right here. And then I'm also going to paint it on the Velcro itself. So here's these Velcro pieces, and so these are this is the scratchy side of the Velcro, and then this is the soft side. The reason why I did it this way is you wouldn't want the scratchy side scratching someone's neck or head here, or sticking to their hair. So you can see I can like tighten the back of the hat this way. From here, you know, I've seen people, you can actually sand these seams if you want them to be smoother. You can trim any parts of the hat. You know, this is your hat. You can actually, like, you could cut shapes out of it if you want to. I've also seen people take silicone, like the kind you would use in your bathroom, and you can take like just a scrap piece, and you can actually scrape on silicone, and that fills in the seam if you want it to be smoother. So you could, I find with this foam, you actually wetting the sandpaper, it's called wet sanding, so that it'll sand it better, and then you can scrape just a little bit of silicone in that if you don't like those seams. And then from here, you can cover it in fabric. You could glue a bunch of crazy stuff. It could be funny if you glued like a bunch of fake fur on here. But I think I'm actually gonna give it to my husband to paint it, who's also an artist, and see what fun thing he can come up with. I think just because the foil and the tape made our pattern a little bit bigger, I'm feeling like this is still kind of big. So I'm actually gonna cut this seam right here. Okay, and then I'm gonna cut a triangle out of it, so that we can make that tighter. And you could do that with any of these lines, you just need to do it equally. So I'm gonna do the same on this side. And then I'm just gonna add some more glue. Something fun I wanna point out too is don't necessarily throw away these little scrappy pieces, because I think, you know, sometimes it's important to make things with a plan or a pattern, but I think other times it's fun to just see what happens when you glue some of these funny shapes together. It can be a fun way to like play and explore. So I've gone ahead and put some glue on some of these pieces. I think another reason why the glue scraps are fun, just playing around with these, is sometimes you're waiting a lot for the glue to dry, and so you can, like, when you're gluing your other pieces, just glue scraps too, and then while you're waiting for the glue to dry on your hat, you can just play around with some of your scraps and just see what you come up with. So it can be like a good way to, you know, to combine experimentation and having a plan. Here's this weird thing that I made, and I'm gonna flip it this way. So I literally had no agenda for this. I was just seeing what I could do. So I could play with, like, you know, could I wear it some way, or, you know, I could keep playing with this. Oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll connect these. So yeah, maybe it's some kind of a weird sculpture. Maybe I somehow make it wearable, but it's just another way to explore this crazy material, get to know it, play. Like, really amazing things happen when you just let yourself explore with materials and try stuff.